So today we are talking about feeling truth within your subtle body. On this path, and really any path that we follow, there is a certain amount of study that is involved. Now, life is the real teacher, so really if you want to know truth with a capital T, we can deeply study anything, but we're easily distracted. So that doesn't work for most people. So in Trikaya Buddhism, we recommend that you study the teachings of those who you feel are most high. So the books that are left behind, the recordings, the concepts that speak to you, and when you focus on it, you just feel a certain intensity, a certain yesness. And go into that, study it. Don't just read it like it's a little fictional novel, but really allow yourself to dive deep into not only what the words are saying intellectually, but what they feel. What do they trigger within you? What sensations, what dimensions are opening? Because truth is not something that we can label and put in a box. Some people have very beautiful descriptions, but that's all they are, they're descriptions. My teacher, Rama, was a master at distilling into words these vast, eternal, infinite dimensions of light. And you listen to his talks, and he can bring it right down into the physical, where it seems very tangible, and as you're sitting in that energy, listening to him, your intellectual mind is like, oh yes, I get that, I know. And then you turn off the recording and close the book, and you go back to your day, and it's like, wait, what happened to that? I knew something. There was something there, but now it's gone. So this is why we continue to study. We continue to immerse ourselves in these very, very high teachings over and over again. And as we move along the spiral of the path, the teaching that is speaking to our heart at a particular moment might change. And it will change. That's normal. You might be reading the Bhagavad Gita, learning about Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield, and then all of a sudden you pick up that book and you're just like, no, I don't want to go into that. That's not where I am right now. And look at that carefully, because sometimes that in itself is the teaching, because there's something that you're about to open to that you're resisting. So when you hit that, and of that, ooh, I don't know if I want to read that, I don't know if I want to explore that, that's a moment of study too, to really take an honest look of, well, is there something there that I'm ready to see, but my ego, my patterns are holding me in a certain way, so I'm having trouble opening to that. And if that's the case, stick with it. Read a line and just let your mind chew on that sentence, on that concept over and over again, to really dig into not what it says intellectually, but what the words are pointing at. What is life, eternity, that which cannot be contained, trying to show you? Sometimes it can help to journal about it, journal about your resistance to exploring or sticking with that certain book that you had originally picked up, or that certain teaching you were listening to. And then other times, it's because we've already got it. And it's like, oh, yeah, I understand. Krishna and Arjuna are talking about not being attached to the goal, being in the moment, but still having the responsibility of performing action. And you feel that in your bones and in your blood and in your flesh, and you know there's truth there. And in that case, it might be time to actually close that book and pick up something else. Maybe you're feeling the heaviness of the world, so you want to dive into something more ephemeral. Pick up some Ramakrishna, where he would just spontaneously dissolve into samadhi mid-sentence. There's stories of him, he'd be standing giving this lecture to this room full of students, and suddenly he would just be gone, and his students would have to rush and hold him up so he didn't fall over. Because one time they did let him fall down, and he broke his arm. And he was like a little child, because he had been so high when he broke his arm that he didn't understand why his arm hurt. When he came back to ordinary consciousness, it was like, why is my arm hurt? What happened? So after that, they learned to catch him when he swooned. Or a Mandamayi Ma, and just go into those planes of bhakti, of just pure love and devotion for the divine. And again, as you study these words, it's not about the intellectual concept. It's about something deeper. It's about knowing. We can understand a great deal of things without knowing. But when we know something in our subtle body, in our energy, where we have that feeling of this is truth, there's nothing anyone can say, even your own mind, that can convince you otherwise. I had the opportunity of sitting with my teacher this lifetime. It just doesn't happen every lifetime. So it's a glorious thing. And I saw a fulgent golden light pouring from him. And I knew that was the truth of enlightenment. And I can tell other people about it, and it's like, big deal. I've heard other people who sat in that same light try to convince themselves it was some kind of mass hypnosis. Which is ridiculous. But because I was there and I felt it and I know it in my being, there's nothing that can take that away. That is what is meant by earning your wisdom. Even when I have gone into very dark places, and that intellectual part of myself is like, oh, why bother sit in meditation? It's not worth it. It's just too hard, and the world is painful. But there's this deeper truth in my being that knows that everything is enlightenment, that everything is pure light. So even my own mind can't convince me otherwise. That's how you know that you have earned that wisdom. That's how you know you are feeling truth in your subtle body, and that you have seen beyond the words. And this is something everyone can do. Anyone can do. But it takes work. It takes diligent practice. And we start by studying these very high teachings continuously. And it's really fascinating to me, at least, because there's certain books that I have read over and over again, like Shankara's Crest Jewel of Discrimination. I can't even count how many times I've read that book, but every time I do, there's something deeper that clicks. There's something that comes into a little more crisper clarity that I can't put into words, but I know it's there. So as part of your practice on this path is to discover the highest teachings that you can access at this moment. On our trikayabuddhism.org website, there's a list of resources. On my turiyadara.com website, on the shop page, there's a list of different books. Explore those. You'll find others as well. Those lists are not exhaustive. And pay attention to what these books and what these different teachings are doing to your mind, are doing to your subtle body. Are you feeling closer to truth? Now, of course, as we go through these teachings, there's always a point of confusion. That's normal. That's healthy. That means your brain and your mind are stretching. Confusion always precedes clarity. So stick with it. Allow yourself to really immerse into that teaching that you were drawn to. Now, you can always ask for recommendations from others, but on this path, there's personal responsibility. You are the ultimate person that has to know, this is what I need right now. Don't ever let anyone take that away from you. Because each and every one of you knows the truth. It's already there within you. Like I said at the beginning, we can study literally anything and touch into truth. We can go sit with a tree and just watch the leaves move. Look at the bark. Observe how it's reaching for light and how it's sinking into the earth for grounding and nourishment. And that's truth right there. That's what we're doing. We are grounding into the earth for nourishment. We're reaching up towards the light. And this truth is hidden in everything, because there is nothing that is not enlightenment. And it's available to us all the time. But the real question is, are you available to enlightenment? Are you available to enlightenment? That's what it takes to learn how to train your mind, learn how to inhabit your body, support your body with what it needs to be as strong and supported as possible. Learn how to train your mind from the endless distractions that are available, that have only grown exponentially. And allow yourself to come back into the core of your being, into the lightness of your being. And recognize that it's here within you, and it's also within everything else. That's where a lot of people get mixed up. Because in some ways it's easy to shut down and go within, to just build up a wall, a barrier, a little bubble of protection. And that's helpful at the very beginning, because there's so much happening. That's why we use these teachings that have been left behind for centuries and centuries, or millennia. These teachings that are pointing towards the way allow us to withdraw from samsaric existence, from the existence of suffering, and touch into those deeper truths. And as we study, we can use that as a way to build a certain amount of insulation around us. And again, that's proper and fine. But keep going deeper until eventually you see beyond the words and you actually begin to embody the teachings. You really start to earn that wisdom. And then this wonderful thing happens where you start to see it everywhere and in everyone. And you find true balance. You find unreasonable joy and peace within you. So as you're exploring, this is from the PIF instructions, we recommend that you temper your practice with diligent study of the teachings from those whom you feel are most high. Strengthen and stretch your mind to see what the word-shaped finger points to. There's a old Zen story about the monk pointing at the moon. And the moon is reflected in the water. And the students get confused and they think that the moon is in the water. And then even when he points up to the sky, he still explains that's still not the moon. We just seeing perception. So as you study, there will be times when you come across a teaching that speaks to you so deeply, with such certainty, that you then want to defend it with your last breath. that's the teaching that you want to really pay close attention to. Because there's something there underneath that is showing you you're clinging to your own identity. So keep paying attention, keep dancing, keep exploring.